Well, greetings, imagination connoisseurs. Once again, it is I, your Duke of Dope Discourse, your master of fun and wonder, your viceroy of verisimilitude, your sommelier of cinema, your archbishop of Banterbury, and your chancellor of cheerfulness. And lest we not forget, your existential Mr. Rogers, Robert Meyer Burnett, Robcasting at you from the Robservatory, you imagination connoisseurs that make up this, the Post-Geek Singularity community. Welcome to another Friday show. This would be Robservations episode number 429. Once again, because I've been deluged with messages about this, yes, comic artist and comic writer and comic enfant terrible, Rob Liefeld, who I have to tell you, I adore. One of my favorite moments ever at any San Diego Comic-Con, I want to say it was back in 2013, maybe, was when at the Playboy party, yes, ladies and gentlemen, at the Playboy party, I ran into Rob and I was talking to him and I asked him about the story at the 1994 Comic-Con. He brought a 1-to-1 scale recreation of Youngblood's flying vehicle. It's rocket ship, it's spaceship, what have you. And I asked him all about it, and he told me the story of how it seemed like a good idea at the time to build a 1-to-1 scale Youngblood rocket to bring to Comic-Con, but when he went and had it constructed, he didn't put a lot of logistical thought into how you could move it and how you could pick it up and where you would take it to. And I have to tell you, the way he told it at that particular time, I was in stitches. I was with a producer friend of mine, and she was in stitches. We were in stitches. We were laughing our asses off. And I love Rob Liefeld. I've always loved Rob Liefeld. I bought Hawk and Dove, some of, I think, his first work for DC, off the stands when it first came out. And he did have a column in Wizard magazine back in the 90s called Robservations. His show is Robservations with Rob Liefeld. It is a podcast. As far as I know, it's not a video cast yet. But Robservations has been used by a few people over the years. And the way I look at it is the Robservations pool is full of nice, clean, chlorinated water, and it's warm. So if you want to jump in that Robservations pool, jump right in. So I'm not bothered by it. It doesn't offend me. And as far as I'm concerned, I look forward to the Robservations team up. And as I said before, since I'm probably a little older than Rob, I could be the Jay Garrick Flash to his Barry Allen Flash. So there you go. Not really bummed out about it, and don't worry about it. There's no reason to get mad, but I do appreciate people coming to my defense, and I thank you very much. But it's all good in the hood, as they say. Ladies and gentlemen, tomorrow begins the Mainframe Comic-Con 2.0. I did it. I hosted a couple of panels. I was going to do 3 panels this year. This year. I hosted a couple panels back in the day, which was a month ago. They asked me to come back. Everybody was happy with my moderating, and I found out today I was going to do 3 panels, 1 on Saturday and 2 on Sunday. Lloyd Kaufman, the man who started Troma, who's directed many of their movies, the man behind The Toxic Avenger and Sergeant Kabuki Band, NYPD, he actually requested, I interviewed him last time, but he requested that I come moderate his panel tomorrow, which I think is at 11:30 Central Time, and maybe it's 11:30 our time, but then it's Central Time. You'll have to look. Go to the Mainframe Comic-Con. But he requested today that I come back and moderate his panel. So good on you, Lloyd Kaufman. Thank you so much. It was such an honor to speak with you. And apparently, hey, it's always nice to be remembered. So I'm very much looking forward, sir, to coming back and talking about your filmmaking tomorrow. And it's a how-to if you ever wanted to know about filmmaking from the man who created Troma. Tomorrow's place to do it. On Sunday, I'm interviewing Lisa Emery, Mrs. Snell on Ozark. Cannot wait to talk to her. Wow, did she throw herself into the role this year. Unbelievable. And also on Sunday, I'm going to be speaking to the Steward of Gondor himself, John Noble, who obviously you remember from Return of the King. He was also on Fringe. He's done video game voices. He's done a lot of great acting, and it's an honor. I didn't get to work when I was working on the Lord of the Rings project. I only worked on Fellowship and Two Towers because I and my company was offered Chronicles of Narnia to do, so I had to jump ship. And I was just in a different part of New Zealand, but I'm really looking forward to having a conversation with John Noble. I think he's a very fine actor, and he's very fan-friendly. So that's going to happen on Sunday, so look out for that. Now, the first thing that I want to talk about, ladies and gentlemen, it's a plea and it's a cause. And I don't know how many people might be interested in this, but as everyone knows, Paul Allen, one of the co-founders of Microsoft, the owner of the Seattle Seahawks, one of Seattle's favorite sons, passed away in 2018. He created the Experience Music Project. He bought the original model of the Enterprise D from Star Trek The Next Generation, the big model. And he passed away in 2018. And one of the things he had was Vulcan Productions. It was his company that did lots of other things. And one of the things that Vulcan did was it bought and renovated Seattle's Cinerama Theater. Now, as everyone knows, I grew up in Seattle, Washington. I love my hometown. My mom and my sister still live there. And at the time when I was growing up, and this is not me talking with rose-colored glasses, Seattle had per capita something like more movie theaters than any other city in the United States per capita. It was a great movie-going town, and we had all of these beautiful, giant movie houses. And in downtown Seattle, we had the Music Box in the town, both 70-millimeter houses. We had the Soda Stick Grind House, the Coliseum, that was used to be a grand theater, but it fell into disrepair. But I saw things like Flash Gordon there. I saw Roller Coaster there. I saw the Car and Race with the Devil there. I love the Coliseum. And then there was 3 theaters sort of in a little group, like in this L-shaped group. There was the UA-150, where The Empire Strikes Back had its record-breaking 61-week first run. It ran for 61 weeks. Then across the street was the King Cinema, where I saw movies like Close Encounters of the Third Kind and To Live and Die in L.A. And then around the corner, up 2 blocks up from Amazon's new geodesic ball headquarters, is the Cinerama, or was the Cinerama, is the Cinerama. It's there. Paul Allen bought the Cinerama, renovated it, and it is one of the United States, if not the world's best movie theaters. It's an incredible, incredible movie theater. He's displayed some of his prop collection there. It's state of the art. It's unbelievable. And in February, it closed its doors without notice. Basically, laid off all of its employees. I mean, they had film festivals there. They had a great science fiction film festival there. They closed its door. It closed its doors. It might never open again. And because of Amazon, the real estate prices in downtown Seattle have skyrocketed. The living expenses there, cost of living has skyrocketed through the roof. It does not resemble the Seattle that I knew growing up. Still a great town, but it's very different from Seattle, the Seattle that I grew up with. But the Cinerama is the last of Seattle's grand theaters in downtown Seattle. It's the only one left. Now, the corner, you can see in this photograph here, that the corner where this building resides, you can see, can you see? Okay, I'm moving my cursor right up here at the top. You see that this is a pretty short building, and it's surrounded here, behind it, and here with all of this new construction. There's all of these new buildings that are worth, the real estate prices, worth a lot of money. I am sure, like the Martians in War of the Worlds, there are real estate developers eyeing this, and I don't know if there still is, but right behind the Cinerama, there used to be a parking lot. I would imagine that was probably sold as well, but it doesn't look like it because there's nothing right behind there, but I don't know if it's there. I don't know. This is a very, very valuable piece of real estate. But here's the thing. I understand that our society is driven by the almighty dollar, and everybody has to make more and more and more money. But What's the point of living in a city if all of the culture and all of the things that make that city unique are bled out of it? Yeah, how many big box retailers do we need? Everything needs to be the same, homogenized. I just, this is my plea, ladies and gentlemen. Any of the Seattle fathers who can do anything, or mothers, or sisters, or brothers, or if you don't want to identify as any of those, anybody who lives in Seattle, I beg of you, save this theater. Amazon should buy this theater and do with it. I mean, it's literally 2 blocks down the street from their flagship building, literally 2 blocks. Amazon needs to straight up buy this, turn it into Amazon Cinerama, and they can showcase their movies. They can have film festivals there. They need to pay people a premium who work there. They need to get the best projectionists there. They need to turn this theater into a protected heritage site. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. It's too important to let it be demolished for mixed-use housing. And or some creative real estate developer should come along and maybe build a building on top of it somehow, but do not lose this theater. This is the crown jewel of movie-going in the Pacific Northwest, and it should not be allowed to be destroyed. The way the UA-150 around the corner and the King Cinema were destroyed. The way all of the great theaters in Seattle, the South Center, the Northgate, the John Dan's, they're all gone. This theater is worth preserving. Let me read this article. It's by Moira McDonald. It was published yesterday in the Seattle Times. In a move that keeps one of Seattle's most beloved movie theaters shuttered and leaves the fate of one of the city's biggest arts events up in the air, Vulcan on Wednesday said it is closing its arts and entertainment division as well as its filmmaking entity Vulcan Productions by the end of the year. This means the iconic Cinerama movie theater, currently closed while undergoing renovations, will remain closed for the foreseeable future, according to a statement from Vulcan. The Seattle Art Fair, already canceled for 2020 due to COVID-19, will take some time to see how the situation in Art World calendar evolve before deciding any further plans, the statement says. 2 museums under the Vulcan wing, closed because of the pandemic, will also remain shuttered. The Living Computers Museum and Labs and the Flying Heritage and Combat Armor Museum. For both, the Vulcan statement said, the coming months will be a time to evaluate if, how, and when to reopen. We've made the extremely hard decision to close 2 divisions over the next several months as we move to a future that will be changed in untold ways by the pandemic, Vulcan said in the statement. The company declined to say how many employees will be affected by the closures. Many of the projects under Vulcan's Arts and Entertainment Division stemmed from Vulcan co-founder Paul Allen's personal interests and served as showplaces for his collections, his movie costumes and memorabilia at Cinerama, his vintage computer collection at the Living Computers Museum and Labs, and his military aircraft, vehicles, and artifacts at the Flying Heritage and Combat Armor Museum. After Allen's death in 2018, there was much uncertainty as to what would happen to his vast holdings. Some had already stepped away from Vulcan. The Museum of Pop Culture, founded by Allen as the Experience Music Project in 2000, now operates as an independent nonprofit and will not be affected by Wednesday's announcement. Though it's still listed on Vulcan's website under its arts and entertainment umbrella, the Flying Heritage and Combat Armor Museum is an independent public charity. Living Computers Museum and Labs is overseen by a private operating foundation run by Vulcan staff. Wednesday's news brought another twist to the long saga of the Cinerama, which had closed abruptly at the beginning of this year. Vulcan said in February that the closure was temporary in order to make renovations, including an overhaul to the kitchen. A reopening date was given only as later this year. Most of the theater's employees were laid off at that time. There is the Cinerama, I imagine, with Star Wars. This was the opening for The Last Jedi. This theater, I saw Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom here opening night, a special screening. I mean, I can't tell you, I saw Arthur here. I saw Blade Runner in 70 millimeter at this theater the day it opened. I was there at the first show with Jolie Von Sour and Mike Schertz at noon at this theater. I also used to see at the Seattle International Film Festival, they would put on the 70 millimeter film festival every year, which was amazing. So I got to see 70 millimeter beautiful prints of everything from West Side Story to Lawrence of Arabia. It would start at midnight. We'd stay up all night and watch 70 millimeter movies. I cannot tell you how great this movie theater is and what it means to Seattle as a city and as a vibrant movie-going community. People in Seattle love movies. We must save the Cinerama. Amazon must buy it. Amazon must keep it as a premium theater, and they can screen their shows. They can debut. This should be Amazon's world premiere facility, where every time they make something, whether it's the new season of Marvelous Mrs. Maisel or whatever movie they're going to put on, Jack Ryan, whatever, everybody should always go to premieres of Amazon projects and movies at this theater, and Amazon should buy this theater. They should save this theater. They should make it a premium theater experience the way Paul Allen did. They should keep it going, because you know what? It's not all about money. Sometimes it's about culture, and Amazon should absolutely preserve this theater. Preserve it, preserve it, preserve it. I cannot stress that enough. One of the few remaining cinemas worldwide that was originally built to showcase 3-projector Cinerama technology. The Seattle Cinerama opened at 4th Avenue and Lenora Street in 1963. After it fell into disrepair during the 80s and 90s, it was not in disrepair in the 80s. Let me just tell you. Allen bought the theater in 1998, reopening it after major renovations in 1999. With its enormous immersive screen and trademark chocolate popcorn, Cinerama became a beloved hub for many Seattle moviegoers. Additional renovations at the theater took place in 2010 and 2014. Founded in 2015, the Seattle Art Fair is a vast annual event bringing national and international galleries and buyers to town and attracting tens of thousands of people. This year's Seattle Art Fair was scheduled for July 23rd through 26th, but was canceled in late April, with organizers citing the pandemic. And then this goes on and shows the computer museum and all of that. Vulcan Productions, founded in 1997, produces documentary films and television programming, mostly focusing on environmental and social issues. Ruth Johnson, general manager of Vulcan Productions, said in a statement that she was deeply saddened to announce that Vulcan Productions will be closing its doors at the start of 2021. This difficult decision was made as part of the ongoing transition after Paul Allen's passing in 2018 in light of the unprecedented crisis brought on by the COVID-19 pandemic. I just want to say, I get it. Paul Allen, visionary that he was, is gone. There's a lot of money to be made selling off the pieces of his life that he cared about. I get that. I understand. I understand profit motive. But please save the Cinerama Theater. It is such a wonderful experience. Anyone who's seen a movie there can tell you. It is an incredible auditorium. It has been tweaked. Paul Allen spared no expense, making this theater one of the best movie theaters in the world. Seattle deserves to have it there. Amazon should use it as its showplace to open all of its movies and all of its shows. I mean, if nothing else, again, Amazon's Cinerama. Preserve the history, preserve the projection, preserve the experience of going to a movie, going to a grand movie theater. And it's not like an old school movie theater. It's modern, it's nice, it's a great experience. Please save this theater. I beg of you. I beg of you. I don't know how to do it. I wish I was a captain of industry. If I had money, I would buy this theater. I'm sure the real estate price is through the roof. But, I mean, Amazon owns half of Seattle anyway. Just buy it. Buy it, buy it, buy it. Turn it into Amazon's Cinerama, or make it Amazon's Paul Allen Cinerama Theater. Please do this. Don't do it for me. Do it for the world. Do it for all of your show. You'll have a show place to have world premieres of everything that Amazon Studios makes. How cool is that? It'll be a very prestigious thing for filmmakers to come all over the world and see their movie open at the Cinerama. Please do this. Please save this theater. Don't allow this to be demolished the way the UA-150 was. Don't allow this. Don't allow Seattle's legacy. Don't allow the Hollywood legacy of this film, this great theater that's shown so many great movies. Don't let it be destroyed. That's my plea. That's what I'd like to. Somebody help me out here. Come on, my Seattle brethren. Step up. Get Amazon to buy this theater. Come on, Jeff Bezos. You bought a house here in LA that's probably less than the Cinerama would cost to buy. I mean, Can't you do it? Make it Amazon's headquarters. Make it your headquarters is literally 2 blocks away. You know, hell, in my waning days of life, I'll come up and program it for you. I'll curate film festivals if I have to. Just save this theater, please. Thank you. Therein lies my public service announcement for the day. I love this theater. I can't tell you how many times I went to this theater to see movies. It means a lot to me. It's such a great theater. I've been there since it was renovated. Their sci-fi film festival alone over the last couple of years, phenomenal. Anyway, you guys are bored, I know. Today's topic, which I found very interesting. Again, this speaks to the changing face of the entertainment business. And please, if I haven't said it enough, save the Cinerama Theater. So this is very interesting. As everyone knows, well, maybe you don't, but Martin Scorsese's next movie is supposed to be Killers of the August Moon, which is based on a true story, and it's a period piece that's going to star Leonardo DiCaprio. And apparently the budget is a huge $200 million. And obviously it was going to be a Paramount movie, and Paramount's like, we don't have $200 million. And why, to be honest, even I would say this. Martin Scorsese's been one of my favorite filmmakers for decades. You know, I didn't just jump on the Scorsese bandwagon because Goodfellas was good. I mean, I grew up with his movies. All the way back into the 70s. Exploitation titles. I mean, hell, even The Last Waltz. Huge fan of Taxi Driver, Raging Bull. I was so happy to see him sort of get back on the saddle and get back into the public consciousness with The Color of Money. By the way, Paul Newman, people say that, he was, being gifted his Oscar for that. Look, would I have liked to have seen Paul Newman win his Oscar for The Verdict? Yes, because The Verdict is one of my favorite movies. But hey, Color Money, great film. Put Scorsese back on track as one of Hollywood's powerhouse filmmakers, and his output ever since that mid-'80s film has been stellar. Even if you don't like Kundun or Silence or anything, you cannot deny the man is one of our masters. And I think it's great that he's going to make another movie. I really like The Irishman a lot. He hasn't lost it. I love the fact that we've got filmmakers like Clint Eastwood who I think he turned 90, like this week. He turned 90, I think. But I love that Ridley Scott, Martin Scorsese, these filmmakers going into their 80s are very vibrant artists. But anyway, a movie that costs $200 million ain't something that Paramount can really afford right now. Paramount's building up. You've got Viacom and CBS coming together. They're laying people off. They don't have $200 million to make a movie. But look who stepped up. Let's read. This was in the business section of the Hollywood Reporter today. It was published at 8 o'clock this morning. Behind Scorsese's Killers Apple deal. $200 million plus budget, low risk for Paramount. The studio balked at a script change that flipped Leonardo DiCaprio's role, smaller scale, same budget. There is no denying the endearing allure of Martin Scorsese, the rare director whose career has remained vibrant over the decades. Add Leonardo DiCaprio to the mix, and any project becomes almost irresistible, as is clear from Apple's recent decision to plunk down, give or take, $200 million for the dark period piece Killers of the Flower Moon. Did I say August? It's actually dark period piece Killers of the Flower Moon. Those involved may quibble with that number, but if history is any guide, it's low. Yes, Scorsese and DiCaprio are hard to resist, except it turns out that even pre-pandemic Paramount did resist this movie, or at least the version that the filmmaker and star are determined to make. As the studio pulled back, Apple struck a deal to cover the hefty budget. While Paramount distributes the movie in theaters worldwide, Apple will subsequently stream it. For Paramount, elements of the arrangement will ensure that it faces no financial risk, but also very limited upside. The deal instantly makes Apple a big player in the prestige film business and may also signal that going forward, the streaming service will compete by embracing the kind of full-on theatrical run that auteur directors crave, but that Netflix cannot and will not provide. So this is really important to remember. The Irishman was given a cursory theatrical run by Netflix. It's not like they promoted it. It was basically half-hearted. They did that to appease Scorsese. I get it, but it's not like that theatrical run was ever designed to burn up the box office charts, because it was not. It was a contractual obligation. Netflix is not in the business of releasing movies theatrically, but because it was Scorsese and because it was the most expensive thing that they'd produced up to that time, and they thought it was Oscar bait, and indeed it was, it just didn't win any. That's why they did. What Apple's doing, which is different than Netflix, they will pony up $200 million and they will lavish a release on this. They will market the hell out of this, I would imagine. I don't know if Paramount, I would imagine Apple's going to pick up the marketing budget too, but Paramount being a major distributor still, Paramount is not, it's hanging in there. It's got a deep catalog. You've got it. It's part of CBS Viacom. So whatever their new streaming service is going to emerge as being this summer, whatever they figure this stuff out, the Paramount back catalog will be there. But having this movie come out from Paramount, even though it's financed by Apple, and that will obviously, it'll go live on Apple's platform, is very cool, because you have the best of both worlds. You can have a giant prestige release from a major studio like Paramount that has an incredible legacy. It's releasing Scorsese and DiCaprio's new film. Should be amazing. And then Apple gets the rights to the film afterwards, and they assume most of the risk. This is exactly the thing that Paramount needs. It needs a big, prestigious release it can get behind. Paramount is, of course, the theater of The Godfather. It is the theater of, well, Love Story. It's the house Robert Evans built. Chinatown. The Star Trek movies. Top Gun. So, Paramount's got a lot of cool shit coming out, and when you have Apple coming in and giving them their infusion of cash, it can only be a good thing. And the fact that this movie, it's not going to be a Netflix, it's not a streaming movie, this is a Paramount picture that, yes, Apple paid for, and it will go live on Apple Plus, but what a cool move. I hope Apple continues to do this. They certainly have the money. Yes, Scorsese and DiCaprio are hard to resist, except it turns out that even pre-pandemic, Paramount did resist this movie, or at least the version that the filmmaker and star are determined to make. As the studio pulled back, Apple struck a deal to cover the hefty budget while Paramount distributes the movie in theaters worldwide. Apple will subsequently stream it. For Paramount, elements of the arrangement will ensure that it faces no financial risk, but also very limited upside. The deal instantly makes Apple a big player in the prestige film business, and also signal that going forward, the streaming service will compete by embracing the kind of full-on theatrical run that auteur directors crave, but that Netflix cannot and will not provide. Long before the pandemic shut Hollywood down, Paramount was tentatively prepared to back Killers of the Flower Moon, based on the David Grann nonfiction book about the 1920s murders of Osage Nation Native Americans. It's a very interesting story. There was oil found on Native American land, indigenous people's land, and all hell broke loose. People didn't like that. Well, the oil men didn't like that. After Imperative Entertainment bought the rights to Grant's book in 2016, DiCaprio and Scorsese joined the project, and it was shopped to Paramount. But the studio wanted the budget, then about $180 million with a tax credit from New Mexico, pared down to $150 million. No one actually believed that Scorsese actually would stick to that number, but at least it would have let the studio execs fantasize that the costs might be kept in check. I don't know why a period piece set in the 1920s costs this much money, but okay. Sources say things changed when the director and his star decided to revise the script. Originally, DiCaprio was playing the good guy, working for the then nascent FBI. In the revised version, DiCaprio would portray villain Robert De Niro's nephew, torn between love and the evil machinations of his uncle. A source with knowledge of the situation says Paramount felt that turned the film into a moody and less commercial character study. Smaller scale, same budget. While a huge wager on the film no longer seemed like such a good idea, relinquishing a Scorsese movie was so painful for the top Paramount executive team that one insider told me as this drama unfolded, "We're not making it, but we're not making it." At this point, it's hard to imagine even a more powerful old-school studio risking tens of millions on a Scorsese period piece, but what do petty money worries mean to Apple, which agreed to ante up for the version Scorsese and DiCaprio are determined to make? While Scorsese has had his deal at Paramount since 2006, the studio has not financed any of his movies in full or in part since the 2010 film Shutter Island. That mountain logo may appear on the screen, but Paramount merely distributed Hugo, Wolf of Wall Street, and Silence, all of which were financed by others. The backers of Hugo and Silence lost a bundle, and the scandal and court action swirling around the source of that Wolf of Wall Street financing is still playing out. The Irishman was so expensive that the late Brad Gray passed despite his love of his association with Marty. After all, says a knowledgeable source, Scorsese had gone more than 100% over budget on Silence. Wow. Only Netflix would take on The Irishman, and whether the streamer thinks it got its money's worth is known only within its secretive walls. Netflix supposedly was in the mix for Killers, but it's hard to say whether the streamer's heart was really in that battle. Once Scorsese and DiCaprio revised Killers of the Flower Moon, Paramount empowered DiCaprio's longtime manager Rick Yorn to shop the project. No doubt, the studio hoped no one would tackle it, which might persuade Scorsese to come back to the original idea and the hoped-for budget. And Paramount likely would have sought a financing partner. Now, Apple is not only paying the budget in full, but it says it will be the creative studio on the project, which means executives there will get a first-hand sense of the complete impossibility of controlling Scorsese. Note that Apple TV Plus chiefs Zach Van Amberg and Jamie Ehrlich are television guys without film experience. Well, they'll get it. They will be. The movie will get a full theatrical release around the world, presumably with a standard window, though the definition of standard window could change by the time the movie is finally made. What they mean by that is the window, the theatrical window, and then moving over to streaming, say 3 months or 6 months later. Paramount will front marketing costs. Okay, well, there you go. But Apple will make sure that it gets all that money back, either from its share of the box office or, if necessary, by making up any shortfall. Boy, Apple is really, really nice. Apple will also cover costs associated with developing the movie. Paramount could not have a better deal. And let me just tell you this. Paramount needs this. You know, they've got some really exciting stuff coming out, including Top Gun Maverick. I want Paramount to succeed. I love Paramount. I love that studio. I love that logo. And I want to see that studio continue on. And I think, in a way, Apple is giving Paramount the greatest gift you possibly could to pay for the most prestigious movie. I mean, who knows, with people making what they're making now, I think this has Oscar written all over it. What a great way to honor the studio's legacy. I love that. Go Apple. Meanwhile, Paramount will get a distribution fee based on the film's box office performance. Even if the film does exceptionally well, such fees are hardly enough to keep the lights on at a major studio. Wolf of Wall Street grossed $392 million worldwide, and Paramount netted about $20 million, says a source with knowledge of the situation. As for the Killers deal, it's a super low-risk way for Paramount to keep some rights to the movie, this person says, but it has no upside. You're investing a ton of time. Marty and Leo are demanding. It will take the same energy as opening a tentpole that Paramount would own. Then the upside is $10 million or $20 million. It's an interesting use of time and money. But a studio insider takes a more sanguine view, noting, it's a low-risk way to be in a Scorsese movie, he says, and if it's an Oscar movie, you're on the invite list. Look, I think it's great. I think it's great that Apple's doing this. I think it's great Scorsese's doing this. And it's kind of the way things should be. You can preserve the old Hollywood glamour. You preserve the studios. And you keep the prestige. I mean, look, it ain't show friends, it's show business. I've been saying that from the very beginning. I get it. There's a lot of money involved, and everyone's got to get paid. It isn't a charity. It isn't a charity. But you know what? The movies are important. And as everything's moving over to streaming, and we're moving away from, because of COVID, we're moving away from the theatrical experience, and we wonder, will AMC be back? You know, people like Regal or Cinemark, they're all out there swirling around wondering, is the movie-going experience going to die? Is everything going to shift to back home? Are we all just going to be watching movies forever on our TVs? Well, I hope not. I mean, I know I'm an iconoclast. I'm old school. I like going to the movie theaters. I like going to see a big presentation on a big screen because you can't get that at home. It doesn't matter how much money you have. You can't, well, I mean, if IMAX moves into the home business, people just don't have the room to build that kind of a screen on their land. I mean, some people do. I know a guy in Marysville who has a full-on screen and he can project 70 millimeter, but that's not everybody. And I think this is an awesome thing that is happening. Obviously, it would be better if the movie was $100 million, not $200 million. I don't know. I mean, obviously, I haven't seen the budget. I can speculate, but that's a lot of money. That's a lot of money. But you know what? It sounds like a really interesting story. And if it's an epic for the ages, like I think it probably could be, hopefully everybody comes out right. It'll become a worldwide hit. I like to see the whole idea of old school, big Hollywood preserved, the fact that Paramount is going to get a theatrical release, and the fact that Apple is willing to work with Paramount, because what a great beginning. Let's hope that Apple, like, if Apple's going to finance prestige projects with A-list people, A-list actors and directors, they can preserve the theatrical experience, which is what I think that, I don't know why Netflix isn't doing it. I get it doesn't fit their business model, but when you team up with a studio that's going to cover marketing and distribution, well, everyone comes out right. Why can't people wait? I mean, half the time you don't know what's debuting on Netflix anyway. I would think that a great big theatrical release for these movies would generate more interest when it finally moves over to Netflix. I think this is great what Apple's doing. I want to see more of this. What I don't want Apple to do is have all this profligate spending. I mean, spend all this money on all this great stuff and then realize, oh my God, did we get bang for our buck? I mean, hopefully they're playing the long game and they'll look at this in a 10-year stretch of time, and then they'll find out in a decade from now if it was worth doing or not. Because if they're just looking, again, for the next fiscal quarter or whatever year, it's going to take a while. It's going to take a while. I always tell anybody that I'm interested in finding, if I'm finding investors for a movie, I'm like, I'll return you your 30%, but it could take anywhere from 18 months to 3 years. You got to be realistic. Movies are not exactly the most stable of investments. I'm hoping that Apple has a great experience, and this is just the beginning of what they're doing, but it's pretty damn exciting. Anyway, what do you guys think? I've got some letters. Starting with our man, Omar94. Omar94. I mean, Omar, you're writing letters every single day, buddy. I very much appreciate that. Hi, Rob. Since you were a script reader, I wanted to know if you felt that the story being told was better on the page than on the screen, even if a movie was exactly like the script. I ask because I once spoke with my former film professor about the movie The Blue Dahlia, which was Raymond Chandler's first original script. He told me how he felt that the script was better than the movie. When I saw the movie, I thought it was just okay. I've never read the script, but from hearing what my professor told me, it would probably read better on the page than on the screen. Have you ever seen this happen before? Yeah, I mean, movies, I can tell you, like, off the top of my head, there are movies that I covered that got made. Off the top of my head, Copycat was a movie I covered and got made. Dr. Giggles was a movie I covered and it got made. Seven. Face Off. I read a very weird, not very weird, but it's a very different version than the movie that got made. But I read that script. And then I've read a lot of scripts that I didn't cover, but I've read them. And did I think they turned out better or worse? I think for the most part, I have to say that most of the scripts that I read professionally that got made were as good or better than the scripts as just reading them. That's a good question, though. And why does it, making movies, again, is really hard. And when you're reading, like, I'll give you an example. Like, when you're reading a script, you know what? I'll tell you something. Here, I'll give you an example. Because maybe people haven't ever read a film script. I don't know if they have or not. I am going to read you the first page of a script that I've been working on that I want to make. I didn't write this. Let's see. Let's see if I can pull it up here. I have to find it. Okay. And I can do this because this is good. Okay. So I'm not going to tell you what the script is called. I'm just going to read you so I'll give you an example. And I'll explain this question. I think this is a good question. So here is the opening of this script. Fade in. Superimpose the title, The Near Present. Interior. Doctor's office. Waiting room. Afternoon. A dying practice in the worst part of town. Frayed magazines and peeling wallpaper. An old television mounted near the ceiling is tuned to Hallelujah House, hosted by televangelist Emil Zacharias, a slender, olive-skinned smooth talker with a pencil-thin mustache. We hear his sermon in the background. There is a godless evil in the world today. It favors no race, color, creed, or gender. And then we hear a voiceover. I've seen it all, and I've done half of it. Del Amo, mid-50s, or at least looking it, sits in the waiting room like Philip Marlowe on the worst day of his life. Gray hair, face like an ex-cop. His cigarette smoke rises straight up in the dead air as he reads the LA Times on a Palm 13, a thin, pliable sheet of plastic. The way I would have him read it is he's holding a holographic newspaper. It looks just like a newspaper. It sounds just like a newspaper, but it's a projected hologram. And frankly, I was ready to cash in my chips. I was halfway through the LA Times when Evangeline poked her gorgeous head in. And then on the TV, the televangelist goes on. It twists the souls of our children into seething cauldrons of hatred. That evil is Satan himself. Now I know a lot of you hear that name and say, well, he's just a symbol, isn't he? Evangeline, the nurse, enters from the inner office. She's a knockout, if you like damaged goods who will do anything for a fix. In fact, she still has a rubber tourniquet on her bare, needle-tracked arm. So that's the beginning of the script. Now, when you think about that, how do you shoot that? Like, how do you make that look? What's the first shot you see? Interior, doctor's office, waiting room, afternoon, a dying practice in the worst part of town. Well, that line is just evocative. You know, it sets the milieu. Well, what does a dying doctor's office, what does a dying practice in the worst part of town look like? So suddenly, in this, just your opening shot, you have to design the waiting room. You have to, like, there's a TV on the wall playing Hallelujah House. Is there anybody else sitting in the waiting room? What does it look like? How do you shoot that? Like, you've got a superimposed title at the beginning. Fade in. Is the camera high and wide? Is the camera low? Do you see Del Amo sitting in a chair first? How do you do that? So, what is he wearing? What color are the walls painted? Is there a carpet? Is there a waiting area? Is there a receptionist? There's a million questions that need to be answered. So when you're reading a screenplay, the screenplay doesn't answer any of these questions. It just gives you the story. It gives you the bare bones. You know? When it describes Del Amo, mid-50s or at least looking it, sits in the waiting room like Philip Marlowe on the worst day of his life. I love that. I think it's great screenwriting. Gray hair, face like an ex-cop. His cigarette smoke rises straight up in the dead air. Straight up in the dead. I mean, you can see all of that. It's very evocative. But now you've got a million questions. The costume designer is going to be like, okay, Del Amo is in his mid-50s, or at least he's looking it. Sits in the waiting room like Philip Marlowe on the worst day of his life. Well, what does Philip Marlowe look like on the worst day of his life? Is it raining outside? Because then he would be in a trench coat. Is it not raining outside? Maybe he's wearing a linen suit. Who knows? So there's a million different choices that are not on the page of this screenplay that you have to make. And those million choices, and think about that, every page has a million choices on it. Every page. Before you even get to the camera, and then when the camera's brought in, how do you light that? Is there a skylight? Is there sunlight coming down through the room? Or is it horrible fluorescent lighting? I mean, these are a million different things. So you could read the best script in the world. And then what the script page does is it offers 1,000, if not 1 million questions that you have to answer. And then you have to make it move. You have to turn it into a movie. And what happens is any one of those questions, if the actor and the director don't decide on a look for this character that works for the movie. Let's say the actor wants to wear bright clothes. And the director says, well, you're supposed to look like Philip Marlowe on the worst day of his life, so you have to wear muted clothes. But the actor's like, I don't want to wear muted clothes. And what if the director capitulates to the actor's wants? Well, then suddenly the whole milieu, the whole verisimilitude could get thrown off. So there's a million things that go on when you're trying to film a screenplay. So you can read a great screenplay, a dying practice in the worst part of town. I mean, that just conjures up a million different things. And that's what a great screenplay does. It conjures up these images. And when Del Amo says, I've seen it all and I've done half of it, which, by the way, is one of my favorite lines in any movie that's not been made yet, but I'm going to make this movie. So what is that? How does he say it? Like, it's his voiceover, but do you see it on his face? He doesn't turn and go into the camera and break the fourth wall. He narrates it over something. Where do you actually start that narration? Is it on his face? Is it as he's turning his holographic newspaper? I don't know. I mean, actually, I do know, but I'm not going to tell you. But that's what you have to do. And so all of those decisions, what's on the page is one thing, and reading it is a very different experience than watching it. And you have to make all those choices, and that's why movie making is so hard. And then look, you've got all the people that are going to help you. The director of photography is going to have ideas about how this should be lit. The costume designer and the makeup people are going to say, we should do it this way. Does Del Amo have long or short hair? It doesn't specify. He just looks like Philip Marlowe. I mean, I know how I want him to look because I know who I want to play this role. But all very interesting questions to ask. So, Omar, that was a great question. Thank you for asking it. This one comes from Kenny Craley Jr. Or it could be Kenny Crawley Jr. Hey, Robert. Dear Robert, and members of the Post-Geek Singularity, I want to give my full review of the CW Supergirl Season 5 titled Immortal Combat and Season 5 as a whole. Be warned, there are spoilers in this review, so here goes. Wow, wowie. That's what it says. Wow, wowie. A fantastic Season 5 finale of Supergirl. This was so jam-packed full of stuff, so good for me. The best Supergirl season finale since Seasons 1, 2, and 4. The finale came together quite nicely. From Alex Danvers' new suit to Lex Luthor's evil plans to the final battle of the season, it all came together really well. Sure, some things did not work out, but for this season finale and for Season 5 as a whole, but the ending was great. And of course, Melissa Benoist as Supergirl, Kara Danvers, once again, amazing, awesome, and super fantastic in the role. Always plays a character with a smile on her face, even when the things look bleak and the dark. She always gives hope to people who need both on-screen in the CW TV Supergirl series and off-screen too. Just like Christopher Reeve as Superman in those first two films stood for truth, justice, and the American way, Melissa Benoist as Supergirl stands for help, hope, and compassion for all. And it worked its magic in this episode. Finally, glad Lena owned up to her mistakes and Kara forgave her and did not go down the dark path her brother did, or even Anakin Skywalker when he turned into Darth Vader in the Star Wars films. Took a heck of a lot of guts and compassion for Lena to do that and for Kara to trust her again. Alex Danvers' new vigilante suit is amazing, and Kara's reaction so funny, so cool for Alex to wear a super suit of some kind for real this time, and not in a VR world. The big bad of this Leviathan, not the strongest Supergirl baddie in series history I've seen. Better Astra, Lillian Luthor, Lex Luthor, Reign, Agent Liberty, etc. So overall, my final score of Supergirl Season 5, Episode 19, Immortal Combat, I'll give it 9 out of 10 heat visions. And overall, I give Supergirl Season 5 a 7 out of 10. Some things did work, some things did not. But overall, a nice season of Supergirl, and I can't wait to see what's in store for Season 6. Going to be sad. We all Supergirl fans will have to wait a full year for Season 6, but it will be worth the wait. In the meantime, my Supergirl fans and super friends, go back and rewatch and relive this series and stream it on the CW app. Watch the series on Blu-ray. Those are my thoughts on CW's Supergirl Season 5, Robert. Now, how about yours? Well, I have not watched Season 5 of Supergirl yet. I do like Melissa Benoist in the role, though. Thanks, Robert, and keep up the super amazing work on your channel and all the work you do. Sincerely, longtime listener and comic book and DC fan, Kenny Crowley Jr. from Ohio. Well, Kenny, what a nice letter. Thank you very much. I'm sorry I'm behind on my Supergirl watching, but I'm glad you liked it. You know, I'm a fan. I've got friends that work on those shows, so I'm glad when the CW delivers. Always good to have. Jeffrey Eller writes, please sue the pants off of this man, and then sends me a link to Rob Liefeld launches his own podcast with an homage to Bill Simmons. And this is from today. Writer-artist Rob Liefeld has launched his own podcast to talk about comic books, his own and those he's read. Robservations with Rob Liefeld launched earlier this week, complete with a logo paying homage to Ringer's The Bill Simmons podcast logo. Most know that I love to talk about comic books and its rich and illustrious history, especially how it's impacting the culture right now, Rob Liefeld writes on Facebook. I'd love for you to give it a listen. Robservations with Rob Liefeld is available now on various podcast platforms, including TuneIn and Spotify. Again, I will say, Jeffrey, I do appreciate you looking out for me in this way, but I'm not worried about it. Look, would I have preferred that Rob Liefeld called his podcast something else? Sure, you know, it does create confusion in the marketplace, but I think what I do is pretty well established, and it's different from what Rob is doing. Rob's calling his, I do just call mine Robservations, even though it is with Robert Meyer Burnett, but as a branding thing, I just say Robservations. And, you know, as they say, imitation is the sincerest form of flattery. But as I pointed out, Rob Liefeld did, in fact, have a column in Wizard magazine. By the way, I used to read Wizard, and I totally forgot that he did, but there you go. Dean Mikitich has written in. Hi, Rob and the Post-Geek Singularity. The other day, Eric wrote in to talk about the return of the CBS Sunday Night Movie. He stated that he's happy to sit there and watch a film he loves, even if it means putting up with the ad breaks. As I heard that, I thought, how can you do that? The ads would drive me mad. The reason I say this is because back in the mid-90s, I visited Canada. While waiting to head out for an evening along Toronto's waterfront, I was flicking through the TV channels. I'd been in country a few days and not actually watched any TV yet. The third channel I came across announced that the next program to be on was Star Trek The Next Generation and gave a little preview. I can't remember what the episode was, except that it was Season 7 that had not aired in the UK. So you were in there 93, 94. The UK was still a year to 18 months behind what had been broadcast in the US at the time. I thought, sweet, I get to see an episode before anyone in the UK has, and I quickly checked in with Dad to see if I had time to watch it, which we did. So I settled in to watch it. The episode started and showed the prelude, but instead of going into the opening credits, it went to break. Then it came back and showed the opening credits only to go straight back into a break again. I was thinking, what the hell is going on? This continued for the next half hour, and it was driving me mad as it kept pulling me out of the episode. On the next break, I gave up watching and went and asked my cousin, who we were staying with, what's up with the constant breaks? His reply was that is how TV shows and movies are shown here, but it's even worse in the States. I was thinking, how could it be worse in the States? In the last 30 minutes, I'd seen more adverts than the actual episode, only about 16 minutes of actual runtime. Back in the UK, I was used to 4 ad breaks per hour, lasting no more than 3 to 5 minutes, depending on the runtime of the show without the breaks. They were also evenly spaced out every 15 minutes. So a show like Star Trek would start at the top of the hour and have its first break between 10 past and a quarter past. Second break would be normal at half past the hour. The third break would be normal around quarter to and 10 to the hour, which left the final break after the show had ended at 5 for the hour, ready for the next program to start. Sensible. A show like The Simpsons would start either at the top of the hour or the bottom, run for 10 minutes, have a break, return to finish the episode, and have a break following so the next show could start at the top of the hour or the bottom of the hour. When movies were shown, this was normal, dropped to 3. When movies were shown, this was normal, but dropped to 3 breaks. So you can see my frustration with watching an episode I have not seen and being bombarded with more ads than the actual show. Now, that is not to say the UK is all sunshine and roses when it comes to ad breaks. ITV was notorious for starting movies when the watershed ended. This was when the child-friendly programs stopped airing, and programs and films can air that are not suitable for children. I love that. It was called the watershed, i.e. violence, bad language, sex, etc. This happens at 9 p.m. However, at 10 p.m., roughly halfway through the film, ITV would stop the film to show 30 minutes of national news, followed by 15 minutes of local news, both including breaks. So a film you start to watch at 9 p.m. would normally finish between 11 and midnight. Thank God for being able to program a VCR to miss out the news. Up until the mid-aughts, any live sport that was not shown on the BBC would also have breaks, so you could miss some of the action while the channel had gone to a break. That has excelled what happened on ITV, and they got a lot of flack for it. During a major Formula One race, they cut to a break just as the World Championship was being decided, so when they came back from a break, everyone had missed seeing it happen live. That's not good. There was also a few mishaps with the Football World Cup in South Africa, especially during an England game, where they cut to the break just as the winning goal had been scored. Wow. Due to the anger of the British public, any live sport that had constant action would not go to a break while on. You get a ton of them before and after to make up for the lost ad revenues. Now, I don't know if ad breaks are still as bad there as they were in Canada back in the mid-90s. Oh, they are. But if they are, I don't know how Eric can sit through that, maybe because he was brought up with it. Sorry, Rob. Bit of a long backstory to get my question to you. Seeing as here in the UK, live sporting events will now not show ad breaks while on, does America do this as well, or are you still missing out on the action while the channel has gone to an ad? Also, do you think terrestrial channels could also bring this model over to movies to bring back viewers from the streaming platforms? No. Here are my thoughts on that. Network television's doomed, and broadcast commercials are going to go away. Now, there's always going to be all these indie stations and all these crazy low budget that are going to fill the airwaves. So there's going to be ads. There will be ads, but nobody wants to watch. Nobody wants to watch commercials. I mean, they just don't. And I don't blame anyone because they're annoying. And one of the reasons I buy home videos because all I usually watch is movies anyway. And I do not look, as much as I fondly remember the ABC tonight, Sean Connery, I've talked about, is James Bond, or there'd be a great made-for-TV movie like Killdozer, or Satan's School for Girls, or Trilogy of Terror, those are late night, but whatever. I hate commercials. I can't stand watching them. I can't stand watching the news. You watch CNN or MSNBC, I don't watch Fox, or the BBC or whatever. I can't stand ads. Methylcelluloma, I don't even know what that is. Elizabeth tells me it's asbestos cancer in your lungs. I don't know. I don't even know what it is, but because of TV commercials, I've heard of it. I hate commercials. They're terrible. Anyway, but a good letter, though, so thank you for that. Let's see what you guys are saying today. Let me go down. Zachary King sends in a tip and says, Rob, I hate when franchises overstay their welcome. For instance, I think the Indiana Jones franchise should have ended with Last Crusade, where they all rode off into the sunset together. Also, the Jason Bourne series of movies, the last one was a real dud. I love the third one. Was that the Bourne Ultimatum? Is that what it is? But look, I agree. Here's the thing. If you have a successful formula, you run it into the ground until it doesn't make money anymore. Because, as everyone knows, Hollywood is risk averse. And if you already have a franchise that's made money, you're going to stick with that franchise because it's made you money. And while nobody is going to, people don't want to lose money. They just don't want to lose money. So they go with what works. And they'll run a franchise to the ground. So that's why you get franchises like that, which I agree. It's annoying, but it's just the reality of the business. Willow sends in a tip and says, dumb question. There are no dumb questions, Willow. But does everyone have a counterpart in the Mirrorverse, or because history and events play out differently, many people never exist? Well, Willow, I assume you're talking about the Star Trek Mirror Universe. A good question. Apparently, the currents and eddies of time and reality and things do make sure that everybody has a counterpart, at least in the episodes we've seen, which, by the way, is patently ridiculous. With the way people get assassinated and move up, it's just silly to think that everybody was around. But yeah, apparently everybody does, and it works out. I don't necessarily like that, but apparently it is true. That's how things work, which is kind of weird, you know. I mean, what can you do? It's it's never really been satisfactorily delved into, I think, but yeah. Noodles sends in a two-parter. Sup, Rob? Noodles here. I just dipped me toes into the Kurosawa waters yesterday with Seven Samurai. I really dug the Old West vibe set in an entirely different part of the world. Was this the movie or Hidden Fortress that inspired Lucas? Well, I think both of them absolutely did, but the Hidden Fortress is much more. Look, all of Kurosawa's movies inspired Coppola. Coppola and Lucas. That's why they both presented, say, Ron or Kagemusha. Did they present Ron, or was it just Kagemusha? So that's where that came from. I mean, Lucas was heavily influenced by all of Kurosawa's works, but the Hidden Fortress directly is referenced. If you watch it, even the wipes between scenes are the wipes in Star Wars. I mean, very intentional. Lucas makes Star Wars. I can definitely see Kanbei as Obi-Wan or Yoda, Katsushiro as Luke, and Kikuchio as a kind of Han Solo. Kikuchio. I have, by the way, right there, I have awesome Alfrex action figures of all the Seven Samurai. Just saying. I won't go up and get them, but they are right over there. They're all in the box. I got to take them out of the box. Maybe I should line them up behind me. That's actually a really good idea. They haven't been out of the box for a long time. I should just line up the Seven Samurai behind me so you can see them. Jordy Lyons, our own moderator, sent in a chat. Jordy Lyons says, my son has confirmed autism. Any tips from you all? I would say, Jordy, that not having a child with autism and not being autistic myself, I would say that your child needs your love and understanding, whether he has autism or not. And, don't look at it as any kind of look at it as it's just yet another challenge of childhood to surmount. That's my advice. And what he needs is a strong father figure. And make sure he watches Star Trek the original series first. Don't jump into J.J. Abrams movies. Come on, man. You got an opportunity to bring him up right. Also, start him on the James Bond franchise early on. That's what I have to say about that. By the way, I don't mean to make light of that diagnosis either. So, but yes, do other people in the chat have any advice for Jordy? Stephen Foley is here with the super chat. Wow, thank you, Stephen. Hey, Rob, I'm not a big fan of JJ directing Superman. I didn't like what he did with either Star Trek or Star Wars. Being the producer is fine, but I would like to see someone like Matthew Vaughn direct. Captain Foley, I would love to see that happen. I would love that to happen, sir. Wouldn't that be great? Look, I'm not a fan of J.J. Abrams as a filmmaker. I'm a fan of his as a producer. Maybe he'll hire somebody. I don't know. No one is. But I do think that, look, Warner Brothers paid $500 million to get J.J. Abrams and Bad Robot to come. I think there is no better way to make that splash than for J.J. Abrams to direct a Superman movie. And you know what? Hope springs eternal. Maybe it'll be the first J.J. Abrams movie I love. But remember, he did write Flyby back in 2002. And he has a history with Warner Brothers and with this franchise, so maybe it will be good. I don't know, but maybe it will be. Yeah, I don't know. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip and says, with what's going on with Minneapolis, it reminds me of the Watchmen TV series. The first episode, the only one I saw yet, left me awe-shook. Awe-shook, left me awe-shook. It was way better than I expected. One of my dear friends lives in Minneapolis, and it's really bad there. Stay safe. Yes, to everybody in Minneapolis, I hope everyone stays safe. I lived through the LA riots, and I saw this firsthand. I saw buildings burned down in my neighborhood. The 7-Eleven down the street from me burned to the ground. There were two corners on Hollywood Boulevard, because I live in Hollywood, that were also burned to the ground, which was weird. I mean, it was strange. I was up on top of where I was living at the time, the building. You could get on the roof, and the air was just full of smoke everywhere. It was strange. And you look down on the LA basin, it looked like there must have been 50 different fires burning. I mean, it was insane. It was insane. And it was a scary, scary time. But you know what? When you watch a human being executed on live television because of his skin color, a man that was subdued and handcuffed, there was no need to have anybody. In what world do you put a knee on someone's neck? And over the last couple months, we've watched Black Americans murdered live. And we haven't had a lot of, because of the pandemic, has our president stepped in and had any kind words to say? You know, here's a you want to stop this kind of thing from happening? Why don't we end the ongoing systemic racism in the black communities in this country? Why don't we get rid of some of the large income inequality that exists? Why don't we, get clean water in Flint, Michigan? You know, there's a lot of things that we could be doing to alleviate these problems, and we're not. And hopefully, just like after the LA riots, maybe a discussion will be had and things might change for the better. But any black American knows that what we have seen, whether a black man who is out jogging getting gunned down for no reason, and then this man who had already been subdued by 4 cops who was already on the ground, when somebody leans on his neck and crushes his windpipe, killing him, I think the anger is going to boil over, and anybody who thinks it's not is fooling themselves. When you're watching that footage over and over again on the internet, I mean, we've never admitted just how racist we are, and we need to start doing that. And while do I think that the actions is mob rule and mob justice any good? No. Do I think that there's a lot of douchebags that take advantage of this situation and loot, and destroy just because there's boiling anger there? Yes, I do. Do I think riots are bad? I do. But you know what? Black America has had to watch Black Americans, not that they don't know this already, but over the last couple months, one gunned down in cold blood and one killed by cops who was already handcuffed and subdued. I don't know how you alleviate that anger, because it's going to go somewhere, and I think rightfully so. What we've been seeing is, I mean, so disturbing. That video, I never saw that video, the Minneapolis video, until Meghan McCain tweeted it out, and I watched it, and I was so angry watching it. I'm like, why don't you let the man sit upright? Why does anybody have their why does anybody have their knee on someone's neck like that when they're already cuffed? You've got 4 men. There was a black cop who got up and he put out actually it was on TikTok, and he talked about that. And he was very rational, and he said, look, you have 4 officers. The situation was controlled. And we as police officers, our first duty is to protect the public and protect the public trust. And there was no reason for it to happen. And you know what? None of those 4 cops stepped in and said, hey, man, why don't we just let him sit up against the wheel? Like, why didn't they? They're all complicit, and it was disturbing. And what do they think was going to happen? When you watch your fellow citizen who happens to be the same color skin that you are, who's to say that's not your brother or your sister or your mother or your father next? And this is, of course, coming on the heels of watching a black man gunned down by some yokel good old boys. For what reason? I mean, anyway, Brizzle sends in a tip and says, first time Super Chat. Well, Brizzle, thank you very much. I feel honored that you have broken your Super Chat cherry with me. I very much appreciate that. First time Super Chat. I love Yamato, but the show I like even more is Macross, which is part of Robotech in the USA here. Did you watch Macross? I love it. Since you ask. For long-term viewers of this show, you might used to see this behind me. This is a real motorcycle helmet. It is a real working motorcycle helmet. I bought this. This is a Japanese motorcycle helmet. I bought this because it was the 30th anniversary of Macross. And this is, as you can see, I don't know if you can see in there. Can you see? Yeah, this is a real working motorcycle helmet. This is Roy Fokker's. Look at that. It's based on Roy Fokker's helmet. There's that. And, yeah. So, I also have... You know what else I have? I wonder if I can grab it. This is... Just so you know, this is how much I love Robotech and Macross. But I wonder if it's within my... if I can get it. Hang on. There's one more thing I can show. Now this is not a working helmet. This is not this is an actual motorcycle helmet. It's you can wear it on the streets, but check this out. This is just a prop helmet, but it's just for fun. And this came out also at the same time. So obviously you can see who whose helmet this is, right? But this is just a prop helmet, but it's badass. So, yes. See, look at the wondrous things I have here in the Robservatory. But that's how much I like Robotech. You know, I have a Valkyrie collection or Veritech fighter collection. I have the Macross City over there. I love Robotech. So, there you go. If I have to prove my love of Macross to you, I hope I have. Alexander Wilson sends in a tip and says, the Seattle Cinerama Theater sounds like the Uptown Theater in Washington, D.C. It opened in 1936 and was the largest single-screen theater in the D.C. area. My mom watched all the Star Wars movies there, from A New Hope to Rise of Skywalker. Oh, AMC terminated the lease. Yeah, man, I'm telling you. Well, since Cinerama was owned by Paul Allen's Vulcan company, somebody should buy it. Somebody should buy it. AMC terminated the lease, which means that it is shut down. Many longtime D.C. residents are trying to get it marked as a historic landmark so it doesn't get razed and transformed into overpriced condos. The housing in D.C. is more expensive than Seattle. Yeesh. Look, and I am not somebody... Look, it all comes down to the economic viability of these things. I understand. And the reason why giant theaters sort of went the way of the dodo is because... with multiplexes, you can have more diversity and get more people in. If you're showing one movie in a giant, say, 1,500-seat theater, you just don't, you're not, the economics don't work in this day and age. They used to work, but they don't work now. And I get it. But the Cinerama is a cultural gathering place. And it can have film festivals and premieres, and it can be a revival house, or you can put brand new movies in there for a couple weeks. I mean, depends how you run it. There are ways. Plus, they had gourmet food there, and their famous chocolate popcorn, and they've got all of Paul Allen's movie memorabilia was there. It was a great place. It was a great place. But first and foremost, the presentation was amazing. So please save the Cinerama. Save the Cinerama. Star Wars Rock sends in a tip and says, "Hi, Rob. Have you ever heard of a British author, Callie Michael Morpurgo?" No, I have not. I have not heard of that author. But there are lots of other authors I haven't heard of. So, yeah. Nay sends in a super chat and says, period pieces are notoriously expensive. No? Well, they are, depending on what it is you're going to do. I mean, but now we have the technology. I mean, some of our technology is obviously expensive. But it just seems that this situation, I mean, I don't see how... Look, obviously when he made Hugo, that was very expensive too. But... we'll see, but they can be expensive, or you figure out ways to do them that are not. James Bonner sends in a tip and says, "Greetings, Rob. Did you know that in addition to Scream Factory coming out with a Blu-ray of The Hills Run Red?" See what I did there? Arrow Video will be coming out with a 4K of Flash Gordon, and Criterion has a new Blu-ray of War of the Worlds 1953. Well, it's funny that you say that, James. As many of you know, I produced The Hills Run Red, the movie itself, and during quarantine and sheltering at home, I produced, along with director Dave Parker, these special features. We have 6.5 hours of new bonus features in addition to the other ones, 3 commentaries, 13 never-before-seen featurettes and documentaries, the original making of, which I made myself, proof of concept animatic and trailer that sold the project to Warner Brothers, the original trailer, and reversible cover art. It's out on June 16th. Come on, how many YouTubers can say that? You can come see by the way, I don't totally identify as a YouTuber, but I'm just saying that there you go. How exciting is that? I think it's pretty exciting. But yes, so some of my other favorite video companies, Arrow Video, is in fact also coming out with... Now, I had ordered the Studio Canal. I didn't really realize that Arrow was putting out the Flash Gordon. Again, it'll probably be one of those movies I'll have to buy 2 of, like, you know, because why not? Going next to the Blu-ray, I already have a Flash Gordon with the Alex Ross art, but it's pretty exciting. And yes, Criterion's putting out War of the Worlds. Now, I ordered mine from an Australian company before I knew Criterion was coming out with theirs. And also, the Australian company is, as a matter of fact, to find out, so this is really interesting, actually. So this is starting to become a problem with these boutique labels because Flash Gordon obviously was not, the Studio Canal version was not licensed for the United States. And so it was not. But Arrow did, so they're putting out a 4K version of it, which is pretty crazy. And look, I love Arrow. I think whatever Arrow does is their Arrow is beyond reproach. I really have enjoyed it. I have a lot of Arrow discs. I buy a lot of Arrow discs. So, yeah. I'm excited. And then Criterion putting out War of the Worlds is great too. And obviously, War of the Worlds was my first favorite movie. It's still one of my very favorite movies of all time. So I'm getting this Australian disc that has been shipped, and I'm trying to find the name of this company. Why am I drawing a blank on the name of this company? Well, let's see. No, not that. I can't find the name of it. I don't know why. But yeah, I'm a big fan. So everybody's going to come out fine. But everybody should get that Criterion War of the Worlds because it's going to be great. Star Wars Rock says, do people send their scripts to you by email, Rob? Well, first of all, Star Wars Rocks, I can't read anyone's scripts. And by the way, it is extremely unprofessional to send somebody a script unsolicited. And I'll tell you why. There are a lot of ideas in the world, and a lot of people have the same idea at the same time. And unless you have filled out what's called a release form that releases me from all liability, like you don't know what I've been developing and I don't know what you've been developing, but say you send me a script and it bears some similarity to an idea that I've been developing and I get mine made. You come at me and you go, well, I sent you a script at such and such a time and you rip me off. And no, that's not the case. It's just there's parallel development. And that happens all the time. Similar stories. That's why movies about people age swapping or gender swapping or whatever. Sometimes 3 movies of that same topic will get made, you know. And what do? So I have too much work to do. I can't read anyone's scripts. I don't have time. I barely have time to do all the work that I'm doing. It's not that I'm trying to be a dick. I just can't. You know, I can't do that. I can't do that. So. Julius Goodwin, my fairy patron saint, Julius is here sending a super chat. With how much Scorsese has convinced the studio to put up for this movie, I think we might get we might have a truly rare situation, a very good possible Oscar contender that actually loses money for all involved. Oh, that's happened a lot. Movies that are good possible Oscar contenders that lose money for the studio. That happens a lot more than you might think. Stubble McShave sends in a tip and says, so how are you allowed to go 100% over budget? I don't know. Like Scorsese did with Silence. You probably have been part of a project or two that's gone over budget. How much over budget was the worst one that you were involved with in any capacity? To be honest, I haven't really been involved with shows or things that have gone over budget because, you know, usually you don't. A studio going over budget is one thing because they can borrow. I don't know how you go over budget 100% unless it has to do with, you know, you don't have a big budget in the first place. But like weather, like Empire Strikes Back went way over budget because they were shooting on a glacier in Norway and the weather wouldn't cooperate. So every day that goes by, you're incurring costs and you're not making the movie. 100% over budget's insane to me, but that tells me that it wasn't budgeted correctly in the first place. And, with Scorsese, they probably let him do whatever that he wanted, but I don't think Silence, or maybe Silence was really expensive. I don't know, but I don't think there's any excuse, barring force majeure, acts of God, or something like that. Going over budget on a film is never something that you want to do. Sometimes it's inevitable, but when you're working at the indie level, which is where I've basically lived, going over budget is very problematic, which is why, when you are budgeting out, if anybody's watching this that's an independent filmmaker, you have to budget your movie properly. And once again, as a post supervisor and editor myself, 33% of your budget is for post. 33%. Everyone's like, oh, come on, Rob. No. A low-budget indie movie. Now, I'm not talking about visual effects. I'm just talking about post-production. And again, I'm not talking about music licensing or whatever. This is just post-production, although music licensing should fall under that. But then if you have a lot of source cues, a lot of music, if you want to have a lot of pop songs in your movie, you better have a separate budget for that in addition to your 33% for post. Nobody ever budgets for post properly. Nobody ever does. I've tried. I've told people. I've gone back and forth with people a million times. Nobody ever listens to me. And they're always like, why is it so expensive? I'm like, I told you it was expensive. I can tell you why it's expensive, because it's very laborious. It's all labor intensive. Post is all about paying people for their creativity. You have to. It's all about time, and it's all about creativity. And it costs money, and you're paying people. You can't hit a button and make things cheaper. It doesn't work that way. But I don't know how you go 100% over budget. I really don't. I guess if you're Martin Scorsese and you have a friend at the studio, you can get away with that. But to me, that's very irresponsible filmmaking. Of course, you never know. They might have discovered something in the schedule because they're shooting on location, things they didn't expect to go that long. I mean, I've never worked on something that's been that expensive. I mean, I think Tango Shalom is a movie that's taken way too long because it wasn't properly budgeted from the beginning, but it didn't go over budget. As a matter of fact, if anything, it came in under budget, especially with how much time we put into it. Stubble McShave says, you should absolutely do an interview with Rob Liefeld. Well, I love Rob. He's been on Collider Heroes. I mean, I've been on shows with him before. I'm sure he would. Robservations squared. I love Rob Liefeld. Is a kick in the pants to talk to. He's so much fun. I would totally do that. Drew Douglas sends in a super chat and says, Rob, I have the proof that you seek. The answer to the voice of the ABC Sunday Night Movie was Ernie Anderson. Of course, I knew that. Ernie Anderson, who was the father of P.T. Anderson, Paul Thomas Anderson. Yes, I remember that. Yes, that's true. Hassan is here. Hassan sends in a tip and says, Apple Plus shows are good. I've seen Servant, The Morning Show, and Defending Jacob, so I'm excited to see a new, very expensive Scorsese movie on that platform. Now, because it's not Show Friends, have you thought of another title for your show? Robservations? No, I'm not going to change my show. I'm not going to change my show. I've done 400. This is my 429th episode of Robservations. So I'm not planning on changing it. It is what it is. And you know what? God love Rob Liefeld, and maybe he'll have a much bigger audience than me. But I was here in this space first amongst the people that, in the genre pundit space. So I'm going to stake my claim on it. But you know what? Yeah. So it's okay. Like I said, the Robservations pool is warm and big. And I want everyone to jump in and dip their toes in and come in and swim laps. So there we go. But Robservations, I like that. Curating. Stubble also sends in another tip and says, did you see Midnight's Edge video about the Pike show and how it's not financed yet? I've not watched that video. Oh, I don't think it's financed. They're laying people off. I don't think they're really in a position, like they've announced that they're doing this Pike show, but who's paying for it yet? They don't have they don't have anywhere to, these Star Trek shows, they have done, the way they're produced, the amount of money they're spending on these Star Trek shows, I don't know how I honestly don't understand how they get away with how much these shows cost. They've learned nothing from how a Star Trek series is supposed to be produced. They should not cost that much. I don't know why they do. Anthony Gonzalez is here. It sends in a tip and says, with the Battlestar Galactica reboot, why doesn't someone do that for Babylon 5? When I go back and watch Babylon 5, it's still good, but the effects are comparable to that of The Last Starfighter, and it's not easy to watch. Anthony, you and I park our shuttlecrafts in the same shuttle bay. Obviously, for those of you who have never seen Babylon 5, it is a terrific, terrific science fiction series, and I would dare say seasons 2 through halfway through season 4, 2, 3, and 4 are amazing, but the show was done to keep costs down. It was very, very frugally shot, so the sets are pretty minimal, but they did a pretty good job. But all the effects are very rudimentary. They're very early 90s, early mid 90s actually. Visual effects were done all on the computer, and they're quite primitive. And I think they really hurt. Like, I think they should go in, redo all the effects, and remaster the series in 16:9. I think it'd be worth doing. Then they could put it on streaming services. But again, the problem is who pays for it, and how do they get their money's worth back? That's the problem. And it would require a lot of money. So, yeah. Anthony Gonzalez goes on and asks, can you get me a job as a location scout or a casting director? I'll buy you some hot toys. Speaking of which, why can't we have a General Martok hot toy? Why can't we have nice things? Look, there's been a lot of great. Diamond Select did a really good job with their, 8-inch, those figures. They did the 6-inch ones. I have a few. There's a Locutus right up there. I like those figures. I would love Star Trek hot toys. And QMX has done a great job with 12-inch Kirk, Spock and the Enterprise crew and Khan. But I just don't think that the Star Trek license would... Hot toys, they're very expensive, and they need... The reason why they concentrate mostly on Star Wars and Marvel and DC is because the other ones just don't sell. They're off-brand figures, or they're sci-fi figures, like when they did RoboCop and when they did like The Crow, that they just didn't sell that well. So hot toys, unfortunately, are never going to make Star Trek figures, which makes me sad. Let's see. Let's see what I got here. I got more letters. Josh Crichton sends in a letter. Dear Robert, Meyer, Burnett, I'm back, everyone. I do apologize for not sending in a letter last week. I had Dune matters to attend. Folks, it's like studying for a test with the movie coming out in December. The sad part is there's no test for it, laugh out loud, unless you want to check your understanding. But here's my second letter in a row with a list, but I'm calling it Top 5 Dreams in My Life or Bucket List Items. Number 5, see Lady Gaga in concert and attend Download Fest in Donington Park in the UK and Shockwave Fest in Melbourne. All right. 4, attend the Toronto International Film Festival and South by Southwest in Austin, Texas. 3, be able to write and read more to help with my creative skills, also so I can analyze movies and books better. 2, live in London while working on a future film project, maybe with Rob if he's down for it. I'm down to go to London anytime. And if I can also travel on someone else's dime to get there, so much the better. Number 1, make 4 awesome movies with yours truly, Robert Meyer Burnett, including a documentary idea I have for a 4K Blu-ray version of his movie Free Enterprise called Be My Friend, Captain Kirk. More info coming to it. Hey, man, I'll tell you what, if I can get the rights back, if you want to make that documentary for the disc, all right. I should mention that one of my 4 movie ideas is called Children of War. I do tend to shoot in London. By the way, it's expensive to shoot in London, very expensive. On a side note, how cool would it be to be at Pinewood Studios? It would be very cool, Josh. I would love to shoot something at Pinewood. That would be amazing. I think I should do a follow-up letter with my movie at some point. That's all I got right now. Well, Josh, if I read your movie on this show, I wouldn't want to, run afoul of copyright or anything. I don't want your idea to be, somebody to abscond with it. Hey, look who I have a letter from. Our friend Paul in Long Beach. No one makes me laugh like Paul in Long Beach. Oh, for fuck's sake, Rob. I cannot believe we have to have the same conversation, but apparently many people whom claim that their First Amendment rights are violated by Twitter have never actually read the Constitution. So for the second time in less than a year, it looks like we have to read the First Amendment out loud again. Congress shall make... it's funny when the president starts talking about his First Amendment rights, too, when he clearly hasn't read the First Amendment. Congress shall make no law respecting an establishment of religion or prohibiting the free exercise thereof, or abridging the freedom of speech, or of the press, or of the right of people to peaceably assemble and to petition the government for a redress of grievances. Just to provide a good example of its meaning, when Detective Jim Boyers was in uniform, the Supreme Court ruled that I would have every right to call him, wait a minute, I don't know if I can say this, every right to call him a stain on society. I'm going to leave it at that. And there would be nothing in his governmental capacity he or his department could do about that speech. If I said that to my boss, I'd be fired tomorrow. The best example of this is the fact that the Central Park racist lady was fired from her very high-paying job at Franklin Templeton this week. This isn't conservative or liberal. It isn't Republican or Democrat. What is being proposed is straight-up authoritarianism and the slipperiest of slippery slopes imaginable. The government attempting to tell private companies how to manage their product. No thanks. And for those that may think this is a good thing, trust me, you don't want the next Democratic president to regulate Fox News, do you? Sorry, Jim, I know you're really not a blankety-blank bank stain on society. Maybe. Paul. He said not for airing. Oops. Well, I know, I wasn't going to say that, but I think your point is well taken, because first of all, people don't, it's kind of like the Second Amendment. We're debating what it means, even though it's clearly, what do you not understand about a well-regulated militia, you know? But I think with the First Amendment, no, you can't, having Twitter say that Trump's speech or Trump's tweets should be fact-checked is something that is right. He doesn't tell the truth. He smeared Joe Scarborough. I mean, this isn't up for debate. You know, he's making accusations against an American that are unlawful, by the way, that are the definition of libelous. And, so Twitter said these need to be fact-checked, but we're leaving them up because he did say these things. He did send these things out. And, when he goes after Twitter because they fact-check him, and it is authoritarian. That executive order that Donald Trump signed yesterday, he can go after it? What if he sees a movie he doesn't like? What's he going to do? Go after the studio? I mean, it's absolutely authoritarian. And the fact that we're all going to have to rise up at some point and put a stop to that because it's anti-American. Now, I don't mean to get political on this show, but I mean, if you want to talk about that, that's absolutely anti-authoritarian, and it is. I mean, it's authoritarian. And you have to step up. We are an anti-authoritarian nation. And we do have our Constitution that does guarantee us these things. And you can't go regulate. Just because somebody says to you, excuse me, sir, you lied on our platform to your 80 million followers. You have used our platform to smear an American citizen with no evidence, no due process, and you've used your position as the president of the United States, whether you support Trump or not. No one can support that kind of behavior. It is un-American, and it is against the law. So, I mean, Twitter has to step up and say, and they didn't take his tweets down, and then because he was called on it, then people are like, he's what, mad? That Twitter's like, you lied on our platform, you're smearing Joe Scarborough. You're calling Hillary Clinton a skank, which is not illegal, but the president of the United States calling Hillary Clinton a skank, somebody who's in public service, whether you like people in public service or not. I mean, even though I can't stand Mitch McConnell, I don't want to take it away from him that he has been in the public service for a very long time. And in his mind, he's trying to do the right thing. I mean, he and I come from diametrically undisclosed places, but I do respect that he has spent a life in service to the United States. Do I have to like his policies? No. But at the end of the day, part of what is being an American is that we have dissenting views, but I can admire people that have been in public service for a long time, as much as I might hate what they do. So, but, you know, you can't just straight up lie and have people, like, not call you on it. So, anyway, that's what I think about that. So, yeah. By the way, I didn't answer Anthony Gonzalez's question. I can't get you a job as a location scout or a casting director, because those actually, a location scout and a casting director, make no mistake, good casting directors are invaluable. And good casting directors, they're out there seeking talent out. They're going to showcases. They're going to plays. They're going to local theater that I never want to go see. They're going out and they're looking for those new people. They want to discover those people. Great casting directors can make or break your movie. And same with a great location person. I mean, a great locations manager knows everybody and everything in a city. And maybe out of a city too. But an LA locations manager, these are people that they have skill sets that you cannot sometimes live without, which I think is a really cool thing. And I respect the hell out of them. So, indeed. Yeah. Well, you know what, ladies and gentlemen? This brings me to an end, gentle beings, of Robservations episode number 429. We are coming back tonight. Elizabeth and I will be on Elizaviews, whining about movies, at 6 o'clock. Excuse me, 6 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And we will be bringing you romance on a Friday night with Like Water for Chocolate. Yes, we will. And here's something shocking. I have never seen it. I have never seen Like Water for Chocolate. We're going to go watch it and then do our show. So join us back here on the Burnettwork for whining about movies. Like Water for Chocolate, our first romantic film. So that's pretty exciting. So there you go. And as always, I want to thank... Oh, and let me just... One more plug. So tomorrow, of course, you can find me on the Mainframe Comic-Con 2.0, live and online. Tomorrow, I'm going to be doing 2 panels, one with Lloyd Kaufman and one with our young child star of Lost in Space. And so come find me tomorrow. The times are, I think it starts at 10:30 my time, 10:30 in the morning. But go to the Mainframe Comic-Con. And on Sunday, of course, I'll be talking with Lisa Emery from Ozark, who's great. And, of course, Denethor himself, John Noble. And join me. Check out the Mainframe Comic-Con. That will be tomorrow, which is very exciting. And then, of course, I want to say to all of my great moderators, I want to thank Mike Bodden. I want to thank Detective Jim Boyers and his wife Heidi. I want to thank Greg Smith. I want to thank Louis Yu. I want to thank Jordy Lyons. And I want to thank, of course, the Richard for running crazy watch parties over on Facebook. He's always got something neat playing, whether it's the watch party for the movie that we're going to watch or something equally insane. Go over to the Post-Geek Singularity Facebook page or the Whining About Movies Facebook page. Join them. Also, if you like these chats, slap like, hit like, subscribe, hit the little notification bell so you know when I'm going on again. I will be back tomorrow. I think at 1, I'm not sure, the Central Time, the issue. I think at 1, regular time. I will be back tomorrow afternoon, and I will be back on Sunday, of course, after the Mainframe Comic-Con. So, pretty exciting. Now remember, every person you meet has a story to tell that you have yet to hear. All you have to do is listen. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, that I bring an end to Robservations episode number 429. Marching ever so slowly, but ever so quickly, also to episode 500, of which I don't even know how that's going to go, but it's going to be fun. So thanks everybody. Thanks for the support. I very much appreciate it. Send me letters and all of that jazz. As always, Have a better day, and I'll see you at 6 o'clock Pacific time tonight for whining about movies like water for chocolate. Pretty exciting. So have a better day.